I'd like to introduce Robert Fisher. Some people call him a dad. I call him the Scottsdale murderer. That's just me. But next you're going to see his family. Beautiful family. This is Mary, Brittany, and Bobby. This is a pretty nice house that they lived in. I imagine they were comfortable, had a nice life. Robert worked for the Mayo Clinic. He was a respiratory therapist there. And one day in April, he left at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry, he left at 5 o'clock from work. And this is the next picture that they have of him. And the last picture they have of him at the ATM. Just before that, his house blew up with a firebomb all over the place in the neighborhood. I want you to know that there's not one narrator on this video. There are many. The fire department, the police department, the news media, witnesses, family, friends. So I know you're into true crime. If so, you're going to get your fill of it today. Thank you, and take care.
There's just an explosion up of Holly and a fire.
And a fire. Can you
see it? Big fire.
Can you see it?
Big fire. You bet I can see it. Some house just exploded and ignited on fire.
Okay. Big fire and explosion. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the paramedics. If you see anything else, give me a call, okay?
You bet.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Fire, big explosion. We got a fire and a big explosion.
What's the
We just in the general area of 7400 Oak, 74th Street in Oak.
74th and Oak. Okay. Alright, we're on the way.
911 emergency? Yes, I just heard like an explosion or something at around 74th and Oak. Yes. Okay, we do have the fire department and police on the way. Right behind 2240 North 74th Way.
Okay, what's going on there?
It's a big fire. It's a really big fire behind. It just like blew up.
Okay, what's on fire?
The whole house.
The whole
The
house?
whole house is burning up. Hello. Hi, are you calling about the fire? Yes, there's somebody on the way. Okay, we have the whole world on the way. I'm just calling to make sure you guys are okay. Make sure they come in on Holly. They get lost every damn time there's a fire. They've got to come in on Holly. Okay, thank you.
Is this around 74th and Oak from the fire?
Yes, it is. There are people in there. This whole house exploding.
Okay, we do have police and fire on the way. Were there people inside the house?
Yes, there are. They're probably dead. And the guy's house next door is going to catch on fire, too.
Okay, I'm telling the officers right now that people are inside the house.
All right, all right.
Do you know how many people, sir?
I don't know how many people.
I remember the day that it happened. 8:45 in the morning, April 10th, 2001, there was an explosion that was heard for miles, and then a fire followed.
If you had a TV and you were in the habit of watching local news in the morning, it was one of those kind of things that everybody sat back and watched together. Whole community watched this live on TV that terrible overcast morning.
The flames just jumped out of the home just before 9 o'clock this morning. Here's what it looked like from Newshawk 5 soon after it started. The house burned to the ground in minutes. Firefighters say they heard explosions even after they got here. Police tell us they heard popping sounds on their way here or when they got to the scene, and there may have been explosives and ammunition inside the home, but they can't confirm that or how the fire started.
just heard this tremendous explosion, and the cats went up about 5 feet in the air. It just shook the whole house. And I ran out the front, and a friend ran out the back, and I saw smoke coming up.
It was defensive immediately. I mean, we got on scene, and you could not have gone into the house to fight the fire because it was the whole, except for the garage area, the whole other part was just fully engulfed in flames.
The first firefighter that pulled up on the scene, he said he knew right away there were people inside. He said that smell, the smell of burning bodies, you don't quickly forget that.
Homes burn, they don't just blow up. And this thing was so fully engulfed from the get-go. As the firefighters and the emergency responders were just getting into the smoldering ash, there just seems to be sort of a palpable sense that there was going to be more to this story, and of course there was.
Police found the bodies of a woman and 2 children in a Scottsdale home this morning after a fire. It happened in South Scottsdale near Scottsdale Road in McDowell. John Brodsky has spent the day at the scene. And John, do investigators have any idea what specifically happened here?
Carrie, they really don't have too many answers this evening. They do know that there were 3 people in the home. They found them dead this morning, and they're trying to find the husband who also lived in the home. Robert and Mary Fisher are the parents, 12-year-old Brittany and 10-year-old Bobby, the kids. Robert and one of the family's vehicles are still missing. Loved ones and police still have a lot of questions after this fire. They don't know how it started. They don't know where Robert Fisher is or if the father even had any idea what happened. They tell us that he works at Mayo Hospital. Police say he left there about 5 o'clock last night.
What I remember most is Johnny and I walking to the backyard of the Fisher residence. And going, and the walls were blown out, so we were able to see over the walls of each bedroom and seeing the children lying in bed. And Mary, of course, we didn't know it was Mary at that time. Realizing that we've got a problem here. And Johnny and I just kind of looked at each other and says, we've got a triple here. In an incident like that, somebody's going to make a move. If a house explodes, somebody's going to wake up, somebody might step and maybe be a couple of feet away from the bed. But these people looked like they were comfortable in bed. If it was a slow burning fire where smoke might have knocked them out, but this wasn't a slow burning fire.
We were over it in our helicopter that morning, and it wasn't just a normal fire, it was a conflagration. The whole house was going up. And of course later we find out that there were accelerants used. The accelerants were used down the hallway. A candle was deliberately put in the middle of the hallway to ignite the gas that had been broken off from the furnace.
Flames destroyed the home quickly yesterday morning. Robert Fisher and the family's SUV were nowhere to be found. Their pastor says he was at church Monday night for a hunting safety course.
We have absolutely no reason to believe that there was any issues taking place in that family. They have been solid pillar members of our church for years.
On the ground, ATF agents carrying guns out of the home of a man police say was an avid hunter. They're also looking through evidence at the fire scene. Husband and father Robert Fisher has been missing for more than a day.
I will say that we have done everything we possibly can. At this point, we have detectives still out. They've been out all night following up leads and where they believe he might be.
We know that they were involved in a fight at around 10 p.m. that night. At 10:42, Robert Fisher's seen taking $280 out of an ATM directly south of his house, less than a half a mile away at the nearest ATM, and he's never seen again.
Once again, I want to stress that he's not a suspect at this point, but he's certainly a vital piece of this puzzle and what happened here.
In a case like that, most times your information is going to be, we just want to find Robert, make sure he's okay. And that's why I went to the Mayo, where he supposedly worked. And then, of course, he never showed up for work, so we realized that he's outstanding. Of course, information went out that he was outstanding.
Robert Fisher, he is 6 feet tall and weighs 190 pounds and is 40 years old. Investigators believe Fisher was driving a silver 2000 Toyota 4Runner.
And what John and I were hoping on is that no information about the murders would go out. What we were hoping for is that he would come back and say, oh my God, I saw this on the news, what happened to my family? But information leaked out about the murders, details about the murders.
Our other top story tonight, within the past hour, police announced they are now investigating a fire in Scottsdale as a triple homicide.
This is a homicide, and we have not labeled a suspect at this point. Mr. Fisher is still outstanding, and as we have said from the beginning, he is a very vital part of this investigation, but we have not labeled him as a suspect, nor have we requested an arrest warrant be issued for his arrest.
Somebody there working, it could have been anybody. It wasn't our unit. We had solid guys working that case.
Robert Fisher has been missing since the family's home was rocked by an explosion early Tuesday morning. Police say Mary, Brittany, and Bobby Fisher were all murdered.
Hope they find him and get some answers on why this could happen to a family like that.
By all accounts, family life was fine. The Fisher's pastor counseled the couple, but he says he saw no red flags.
We've talked about how to be a good parent. We've talked about how to be a good spouse, a good husband.
Pastor Greg Cantelmo now tries to help the children of his church cope. It's been hardest on them.
Me and Brock really miss Bobby.
11-year-old Tyler Adair spent the night at the Fisher home last weekend.
We'll be buds forever. Bobby was taking a hunter safety class, and his dad was showing off Bobby's talents to me about his hunters, and he was asking Bobby all these questions like, what do you call the front of an arrow?
As the memorial for the family grows, so does speculation as to what happened. Friends say they don't want to think the worst, but as time goes on, it gets harder not to.
I can still remember being at the scene and I saw Mary Fisher's elderly father walking up on his two canes, keeping his good heart open to his missing son-in-law.
There's one thing that came across very clearly was Brittany's fantastic, strong faith. And I've known that all the time. I've just known it since she accepted Jesus as her personal Savior. She was such a testimony for her Lord. And she got that from her mommy and her daddy because she watched them live. And Brittany was invited and was inducted into the National Junior Honor Society here at Supai on Monday night. And her mother had another meeting at church with Bobby. And so Robert, my son-in-law, who I love deeply, was with her. Nobody's ever reported that. He was here with her. And can I right now just say this? Robert, we love you. Wherever you are, Robert, please, we love you. Just come home, please, Robert. And I don't know what's going on. We don't know anything for sure, but we'd like to hear from you. Please, Robert.
The man missing after his family's bodies were found in a house is now being called a suspect in their deaths.
Police agencies from around the state have been notified that Robert Fisher is a murder suspect, and they have been told that if he is found, to arrest him on site.
That was out of our control. Somehow, some information got out to the media and it was reported that he was a murder suspect earlier than we were wanting to do so. He could have came back in a couple days and then said, hey, what the hell happened here? You know, I was up north camping.
TV5 News learned how the Fisher family died. Wife Mary was shot in the head. 13-year-old Brittany and 10-year-old Bobby had their throats slashed. Robert Fisher is still missing tonight. There are friends and relatives who think he's been kidnapped or framed. They've said he was a model citizen and a faithful Christian who was very active in his church. But Doug Deering of the Scottsdale Police Department says all the evidence points to Robert Fisher as a suspect, and none of it suggests that anyone else was involved.
Everything points to one man and one man only, and that's Robert Fisher.
It was a crime committed in the dark of night, but the aftermath was so very public.
This was a father that shot his wife in the back of the head and slit the throat of his 10-year-old son and 12-year-old daughter. It's unimaginable to most people.
I believe the kids went first and then Mary. Mary was stronger and she would have put up a fight. So he went and got the kids first. And this way, when he goes with Mary, if there's a struggle, he's not going to wake the kids.
The presence of accelerants in the home points to a clear attempt to burn evidence. Theoretically, something like gasoline was used to make sure the house caught fire and burned quickly. Then a natural gas line was uncoupled to trigger an explosion.
And he knew exactly what he was going to get, and he tried to eliminate as much of that crime scene as he could.
He's biding time, more time to leave the city. To get rid of evidence, yeah, of course he is. He doesn't want to see how they were murdered. Unfortunately, he put a bullet in Mary's brain. That's not going to go anywhere.
Now, police believe Robert Fisher is on the run tonight and that he may be dangerous. When they went through the charred remains of the home, they found a number of weapons, but one they didn't find was a .357 Magnum, the gun that police said Robert Fisher carried with him at all times. So they're considering him armed and dangerous.
That bullet that they found in the back of her head, was that linked to any of the weapons in the house that was taken out?
No. None of the weapons that we found in the house were linked to that bullet. It's a specific caliber of bullet. So, more than likely he took it with him.
Literally, the whole valley was watching. There was that sort of shared initial introduction to this story that made sort of everybody involved.
There was a huge public interest in this case. Very rarely is there such an appetite for a story from the public that continues year after year after year, but this was one of them.
It's one of the great unanswered stories in Arizona history. What happened to that family? Why did he do it? Where is he? We just don't know.
Yeah, I bought a new toy, huh? Oh, he's smiling. Oh, it's so fun. Bobby. Bobby, where's your new toy?
Right there. Right there. There, Mom.
Look up at your toy. There.
It's by far the worst crime that's ever occurred in Scottsdale.
Scottsdale is the Beverly Hills of Phoenix, a very calm community, quiet community, called many times one of the safest and most desirable cities to live in. crimes like this you don't see happen here at all. This was an incident that absolutely shocked the community, shocked Scottsdale.
Mary was our friend and co-worker. Her children were our children's friends. We consider ourselves to have been double blessed, to have called her friend and had the benefit of her contributions at work.
Mary was a good friend of mine before Robert and Mary got married. When they were dating, Robert was in California and Mary was still in Arizona, so I spent a lot of time with her. And I was pregnant with our first child at that point, so she'd take me to doctor's appointments and things like that, and she was a fun person. When she had kids, she was very much involved with her children. She loved her kids, and that became her #1 priority in life.
From the interviews and things that I did, you know, Mary was a very dedicated wife.
A very loving person, very dedicated to the church, and wanted her children to have that same upbringing.
Happy birthday, dear Brittany. Happy birthday to you.
Brittany, she was an awesome little girl. She really loved the Lord, and she wasn't afraid to tell people about her relationship with Christ.
Packing up bags today and going to SeaWorld tomorrow. I'm going.
My youngest son, Brock, and Bobby were good buddies. And Brock invited Bobby to come home with us one Sunday afternoon a couple weeks ago. And they played in the afternoon, and it came time to get them back to church for bell choir. And I said, well, boys, we're in luck. We've got the convertible. And Bobby was just so excited, and he said, we've got to ride with the top down. And I said, are you guys sure? As we're getting on the freeway, I said, are you sure it's going to be really windy? You know, go, go, go. It's okay. And I'm not kidding, the whole way down the 101 until we exited on Thomas, those two had their hands up in the air, they were waving at people, and they laughed the whole way.
The last time we saw Bobby, before they had visited us in Cheyenne when we were living in Cheyenne, and him and his dad tried to take one of our cats and steal it to take it home with them.
Hey.
He was a cute little kid.
Can't do it without the tractor, Brett. There you go. Wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrow.
Oh, he holds the future, and life is worth the living. And then one day.
You've heard a lot of things, and you want to say, well, how's that Scottsdale Baptist Church going to get along without them? But you see, God has a plan. He has a timing for our lives. And you've heard today that this was not something that was yanked from Mary and Brittany and Bobby. God has a plan. We don't know what it is, but I know someday we're going to know. You want to know about my Robert? He was the greatest dad. He was the greatest husband. I miss him. I miss him terribly. I miss him almost as much as I miss my daughter, because they were one. Robert was what I call the good old-fashioned dad. There was structure. He never beat his kid. He never touched his kids in that way. I can only tell you that Robert loved his kids, he loved his Mary, and he loved us. And I'm glad I'm not here bawling my eyes out for you.
He was kind of hoodwinked with who Robert was. You know, he's marrying his daughter and grandchildren, thinking, you know, he's the perfect family man.
You have to listen to your mommy, number one, okay?
Do what whatever she says. Number 2, you gotta brush your teeth, okay? Okay. Number 3, you gotta take your vitamins, okay? Okay, what else? Number 4, you gotta say your prayers. Okay? Okay.
He couldn't believe what occurred. But as time went on, he realized that Robert did do this.
A total shock to the family that this could even possibly happen to them. He wanted answers as well. And unfortunately, he passed away before we can get him for him.
At first glance, Robert Fisher was a good husband, an adoring father, a church-going man, a wonderful employee, but when you look a little bit further, you see that none of that is true.
My impression of the Fisher marriage was something that was good in public and probably average or bad in private. I think that when they went out, they put a good face on. Everyone, until the end, said that, you know, they had a happy marriage, that everything seemed to be going right.
He moved in back in the mid to late 80s, next door to my parents' house. He definitely was a different sort of man. He was a nurse. He worked for the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. He was obviously a smart man, and he knew what he was doing, but he wasn't a quick man. Talking to him was like talking to a person who was analyzing every word that you said and thinking long and hard about it. He was the type of guy you could see his gears working.
He was a fireman in California for a while. He was in the Navy. He was a cardiac technician, a respiratory technician. That was his kind of where he began developing his career after he couldn't be a firefighter anymore from his injuries.
He needed back surgery because he had injured himself while working as a firefighter in San Diego, and he took years to plan for that back surgery. He was worried that after the back surgery he might not be able to work, and so he got his financial affairs in order. He paid off one of their cars. He planned on paying off their house.
He was a very controlling person. He was a very difficult person to get along with, to the point where his wife was having difficulty getting along with him. Anything that was put on the walls in the house had to have his okay. She couldn't decorate the house. It was okay to put a deer head up on the wall that he shot, but not, you know, kids' artwork or whatever.
What you take pictures of? Turn that thing off. You.
This is to show our boy is 2 months old.
So what? Leave him alone.
That's his first Thanksgiving.
Big deal, he says.
Oh,
Let's get on
Bert.
with the food.
Will it work with the window open? Hey, Bobby.
Oh.
Did that hurt you?
Say hi. Hi, people. Hi, people. Brittany's looking sharp today.
Let's see.
Show me your dress. Turn around. Turn around again. Smile. Smile pretty. Okay, now scream. See, I knew you could scream.
There's Porcupine Dad.
Okay, kill the camera.
Okay, just a minute. Can you say bye, Brittany? Bye. Now let's find the boat. Don't, that's medicine, alright?
One of the things that I was tasked with during the investigation is to go out and interview anybody who had ever known or had contact with Robert Fisher. One of the troubling things that I realized right away from some of the initial interviews we did is he truly enjoyed hunting, but not as a sportsman. He took it to the next level to where he seemed to enjoy killing.
Friends started associating themselves with him. They wouldn't go hunting with him anymore because he got unsafe.
There were a couple of stories that were really interesting. They went hunting, and they got an elk, and they were gutting it. And the guy turns around and looks, and Robert's smearing the blood all over him.
Better than the rest. Let's go get the commies. Okay. At ease for peace. Cut.
He seems like an angry guy who is, sort of controls with tough guy antics, even towards his children. I guess it's his wife running that camera, and he's telling him to cut and then point something at her like it's a gun. You know, it's, again, easy to armchair quarterback something like that and look and, imply sinister motives, but there seems to be sort of a sinister underpinning to that clip of video, no doubt about it.
On the Monday night, Robert took his daughter to her Junior National Honor Society induction ceremony at the school. And then Mary that night took Bobby to his hunting class. They came home that night and the neighbors overheard an argument.
There was a loud argument. Then I believe that after his wife and the children went to bed, that he stayed up and he made a decision that he'd had enough.
They're asleep, and he literally slices their throats to where they're almost beheaded. He cut her throat and then put a bullet in her head. I believe that's, the fuck you shot. You're not going anywhere.
By him blowing up the house, do you think he felt that you guys would discover nothing?
Hey, he could have believed that. Absolutely. He could have believed that everything would have been disintegrated. We got a photograph of Robert Fisher at a bank, actually just a mile down the street, extracting money.
We don't know if that was before he did it or after, correct?
No, we don't. But we have information on timelines of arguments that were heard by neighbors. So we're figuring he's extracting money. Yeah, he's probably taken off because her vehicle's in the background. And her vehicle's not at the house when we're there that morning, so he's gone.
He took his dog, which his sister told police he loved more than his family, went to an ATM and got a few $100s.
A curious amount to withdrawal.
Because he had more in there, right?
Yeah.
He had lots of assets. IRAs, he had money market accounts, he had Bobby and Brittany's savings. But you got to remember, back then, it gave you a max of, and some accounts are still that way with, you can only take out X amount of dollars in a 24-hour period. He took out the max amount of money, and then that was it. He never came back and tried to liquidate any more of his assets.
I think he was planning it. I always thought he had planned it. Did he plan it for that night? Who knows?
There's very little evidence of premeditation. There's no evidence that he was stockpiling funds prior to this. There's no evidence of a secret account. He had changed the oil in his own vehicle the day of the homicide and then fled in his wife's. That to me is a puzzle. He had actually a good 10-hour jump on us.
There's information that he was driving back and forth on the Mogollon Rim, which is north of Payson, northeast Arizona area. This woman calls me and says her and her husband are up there on the Young Road. It's a forest road. They're driving south, and the woman is the passenger. And they see a gentleman walking out. And she looks right at him as he walks by their car. Right away, they believe that looks like Robert Fisher. Unfortunately, they called us after the fact, which happens a lot. People always get this in their mind, well, no, that can't be him. No, that can't be him. I've spoken to a tow truck driver that probably pulled him out of a ditch.
We don't know who that guy was that helped pull him out. So that's one of the things that we're trying to track down to, is who that guy was that helped pull him out. For all we know, he could have helped gave him a ride. If you leave Phoenix and you want to go to Payson, there's only one way to go. So you're driving up Highway 87. You hit Rye, which is a small little tiny town, before you get to Payson.
There was a bartender at the Rye Diner. She said a couple came into the bar. A gentleman walked in. A woman that came in with him immediately went to the restroom. He came up and ordered a drink. Once he orders this drink, he steps away from the bar and stands by there's a fireplace across from the bar. She says this man stood and kept his face hidden from everybody in the bar. The woman came out of the restroom, and it seemed like they were kind of arguing. What was real interesting is, I believe it was the next night, we get a call from somebody that lives in Rye. Their doorbell is ringing. It's a female that says her boyfriend they had an argument and he just dumped her. And she needed to call for a cab. So they let her in. Her description kind of matched the Rye Diner woman. And see, and that's where all this information came out with Fisher having an affair.
At one point in the relationship, we heard that he had an affair. He confided in his church. They told him that he needed to confide in his wife. They separated for a while. They reconciled.
About a year prior to the murders, he had gone to a masseuse and allegedly contracted a urinary tract disease from the masseuse.
As the relationship started going on, she found out that he might be having another affair. Now, how that affair she found out, I'm not exactly sure, but it almost appeared to us like he was kind of throwing it in her face.
There's information that he had told Mary, I had an affair.
One of the things that investigators originally believed was that there was a girlfriend, and that this woman was someone who helped him get away. They were never able to confirm that. Nobody in the workplace was ever able to confirm that there was some sort of a workplace romance going on.
No one has any idea who this person might be. And then we go back to when we analyze who Robert Fisher was. Cocky, arrogant, conceited, liked to talk about himself. It's a very good likelihood that maybe he just concocted it.
I know that my brother was unfaithful one time in their marriage. He had a back injury and he went to have a massage and he fell into temptation. Mary was gone at the time. She came back and my brother confessed it to her. And that's when they started going through counseling. The rumors that he was unfaithful in other ways, they're just rumors as far as I'm concerned. Their marriage suffered greatly after that. And I don't know if Mary ever forgave my brother after that.
As the years went by, him and his wife fought, and they fought a lot. Now, to his credit, he never really ever raised his voice or screamed at his wife. It was always his wife doing the screaming at him, calling him worthless, saying she could have done better. Now, this happened almost on a daily basis for over a decade. When him and his wife would have an epic or just a gigantic blowout, he'd disappear for a week or two or take a long weekend off work and just go camping. He'd go out there alone a lot of times and just take his dog.
Whoa.
See you, Mom. Be back Sunday morning.
Okay.
Here you go.
Love you, Mom. Love you, Mom. I love you. Hold my hand. You take a picture of Daddy, drive away? Okay.
The truck's gonna be at Forest Pasture. I'm gonna be fishing at the Salt River arm of the lake.
Oh. Okay. Bye-bye.
Mary was a very good-hearted person, but Mary wouldn't also put up with a lot either. We got information that she was outspoken.
Mary Fisher was complaining to Robert's mother by phone that he was sort of this tough love husband and it was hard to please him and everything had to be his way. His mother told her that it was the same way when she was married to Robert's father, and it's just something that, that you got to deal with and you got to be firm with him.
I think Mary finally said, hey, enough, we're done. And I don't think he could deal with it.
His general attitude changed a lot over the years. I mean, he was a very proud, sort of arrogant, very confident person. Years later in the relationship, when you'd see him on the street or talk to him next door, he was tired. I mean, there was definitely something different about him, like he had a heavy weight on his shoulder.
When my parents divorced, I was in 6th grade, my brother was in high school, and my older sister was out of the house in college. And yes, it affected all of us.
With open arms, he just delights that you should bring your little children to him, and that you as parents should come to him as little children. We bring them in order that he might bless them. I think the primary way is through mom and dad, and through that, God plans to bless your children. Thus, to dedicate your children, it seems proper that you should choose them, first of all, to dedicate yourselves as well. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
His parents divorced when he was young. He went and grew up with his father. His father remarried a woman who was very hard on him. So in his eyes, he would never do that to his kids, and maybe it was, rather than get divorced and have his kids raised by somebody else, if his wife remarried, he wanted to start all over.
Get a shot of Dad in that suit.
Okay, Bobby. I put a suit on today for you, boy.
Look at Dad.
The next time I'll put a suit is at your high school graduation. Do you hear me, all you people out there?
Divorce affects everybody in all situations. Whether or not you can blame a murder on a parent's divorce, I don't think that's fair. It did affect my brother differently than it affected me. He always took marriage very seriously. If I was dating the wrong type of person, he would let me know it and say, why are you dating that person if it's not a person you didn't intend on marrying? The divorce hurt me because my parents were no longer together, and I did think twice about getting married because of it. But I would have never thought that divorce isn't an option like my brother thought.
What'd Bobby do today, Brittany? Why was he in big church? Dedication, good. That's for that skirt right there. That little booger right there.
There was a guy that was camping up in the northern Arizona, near Young, Arizona. He had said that he observed a car door open, that matched Fisher's vehicle. He went up to a gas station up in Heber, Arizona, called somebody that he knows down in Mesa, who relayed that to this police department. Our investigators then utilized DPS and a Ranger helicopter, did a flyover.
We believe it was sitting there for 2 or 3 days. It could have been sitting there for 5.
Do you think Robert Fisher was trying to frame his wife by taking her car after the murders?
No. Him taking Mary's car, it's a way of, we can't identify the bodies, so is it Mary in there or is it Robert? You know, so that now that takes a couple of more hours to confirm who's that other person in the fire. Also, it might have been easier to get around in her vehicle than his vehicle.
Robert Fisher had a large diesel truck. If you're going camping and probably trying to get away from everyone in a remote part of northern Arizona, it's probably a better idea to take the 4Runner, even though her 4Runner was 2-wheel drive.
So now we have a fugitive, committed a crime, and where's he going to go? He's going to go to the areas he knows the best. He hunted that area, knew it like the back of his hand.
When they spotted his car 10 days later in Young, Arizona, hopped in the car and went up there. There was no motels because everybody was up there. It was almost like a giant camp out.
You've got fairly thick vegetation, a lot of caves, and you know, if a person knows what they're doing, it's fairly easy to hide. So it's not going to be easy.
You had just hundreds of detectives and law enforcement from all over the state, and essentially for 3 days they staked out that area and they combed over it.
We do have a search warrant for that vehicle, so there's no problem with it.
You know that they've got a homicide suspect here.
Yeah, I read about it.
Okay, yeah, probably you don't want to pick up any hitchhikers.
Where you been, cutting wood?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you have an ID? Where are you headed through to then?
I'm going back down to Payson.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Where his car was found, there were 3 caves within just a short distance, and they thought that he was in one of the caves. It was actually called Cave 41, and so they brought in spelunkers, they brought in cadaver dogs, and they brought in cameras to try and search this cave, and they had SWAT team members crawling in. They knew Robert Fisher was military. He was trained, he had numerous weapons, so it was a slow, painstaking search.
So are you the operator of this?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain to me just like real briefly how it works? Or?
It's got a computer monitor in here, and this is the camera here. It'll light up, and then it'll give us a picture on the inside.
Is it like a black and white picture?
Yes, ma'am.
And you can see it through anything, through water?
Your water, anything. It's kind of hard to see through water, but it does a real nice job.
This camera is designed to go into sewers and take pictures. They sent that into the cave where we thought Robert Fisher may be, and it determined that there was nobody in there. We, of course, confirmed that by physically going into the cave.
He could have easily been in another cave nearby that was not searched. I hiked around with him, personally saw at least 6 different caves within a short walk from this existing cave. Aside from that, they told me there were at least 30 caves within a quarter mile of the cave the police searched. In the caves, I think it's definitely possible that he could have, if he wanted to commit suicide, could have done that successfully without anyone really knowing about it. You don't have to go very far in that cave before you realize that any kind of sound, such as a gunshot, if he were to kill himself down there, you're not going to hear that above ground.
The conditions were horrible. It was raining, it was snowing. That was eventually why they had to call off the search.
He's not there. None of his guns are up there. No knife that he used to kill his kids. The car, when we found it, was clean as a whistle.
We didn't find anything in the car. Our crime scene specialist went through that car. The only thing that we could find was DNA on a hat and one fingerprint off of a coffee cup. And that was Robert Fisher's fingerprint. Not that that links him to a murder, but it puts him in that car.
There was human feces near the door of the 4Runner. Maybe a final, sort of, take that sort of a statement to his previous life. That he went to the bathroom right by her car.
TJ talks about this witness, this lady that saw a guy that looked like Robert Fisher walking up the road with a backpack. I don't necessarily think that that occurred because I believe the dog would have followed.
Why didn't he take the dog with him? He left the dog by the car. The dog was not tied up to the car, but the dog made a bed underneath the car.
If a dog is trained and you tell him to stay, he will stay. But dogs also tend to run, if you take them out in the forest or out in an open area, they tend to explore. And that dog may very well have been out chasing a squirrel or something when he decided to leave. Because I believe that if he was going to walk away, he could have easily just tied the dog up, and so it wouldn't follow him. But the dog was loose. And the other issue with the dog is, why would he bring the dog in the first place? There's been thought that perhaps the dog could be useful to him to alert him in case anyone was approaching. However, when you think that, I think the dog would be more of a detriment in that regard. The dog could bark at any number of things, and the dog could just as easily cause his detection as help him avoid detection. I think he brought the dog because he loved the dog more than his family.
I think he led us right where he wanted to lead us. To a dead end near Payson with his dog there and his Raiders cap in the truck to make us think. He went out in the wilderness and shot himself, but we never found the body.
Very likely he committed suicide. He hung around probably expecting the police to show up at any moment. They didn't, and he finally was ready to go.
We tend to always find the body.
Maybe the animals got to him, or maybe the wolves.
Even then, you'll find a skull. Something will remain. You usually find it. My feeling is second vehicle, or a way to get out of there, or to hike somewhere to hit a road and hitchhike out.
Boy, guys, Santa brought you a good surprise, huh, Brett?
Brett, there's one more thing that goes over here. Hooks onto here. It's a carriage where like 4 people, you and 3 of your friends, could sit on it and swing, but it's not put together yet.
After everything's been said in the media for the last 10 plus years and how the media has told the story, it's completely understandable how people react and how my brother's name is known to be a monster now. But the marriage I saw was just like any other marriage, good times, bad times. All of us have negative things in our lives, and all those negative things can be exaggerated into untruths and made into truth by people repeating them so many times. Like my brother being an avid hunter, they have pictures of him out there with stuff on his face and in his camos, and a lot of hunters do that when they're hunting, and they've made that picture into Robert being warped.
Santa woke me up last night, and he goes, hey Bob, come on out here and help me put the slide on. So I had to come out here. His reindeer are parked in the backyard, and I had to stick and put the slide on with him. He's running behind because he got other kids for another kid.
Say more push.
I'm hoping there's another story out there that the FBI just hasn't concentrated on yet, and that there might be another answer to this. He was presumed guilty from 3 days after this tragedy. No other situations had been looked at since then. I'm hoping that it's not Robert.
What are the chances that Fisher didn't do this?
As an investigator, my first response to that is, why is he hiding then? Why did he take off? Why did he take all of his clothing? When he took most of his stuff from the house and took off and ran.
The only way I can explain Robert and Mary's marriage is based on what I knew and what I saw, not by rumors, not by what the media has said. I know that my brother was a very controlling person. He was controlling in everything he did because he was compassionate about things that he believed in. He was very compassionate with all parts of his life.
Do you think he's alive?
I don't know if he's alive or not, but if he is, I hope he calls me, because I'd like to meet him in a bar some night. And I've said this before, I'll buy the beer.
The Scottsdale Police and the FBI have been operating under the theory all these years that what Robert Fisher did was he abandoned Mary's sport utility vehicle there in the Tonto National Forest and then got out, either by his own means or through the means of a friend who has yet to be discovered. I don't agree that that is what happened. To disappear oneself, to take on a false identity, either in this country or in a foreign nation, takes money, it takes planning.
He's not going to take $280 out to go up to an area in the woods and kill himself. Logical explanation is somebody gave him a ride or he had some sort of transportation out of the area.
You need to know how to get a false social security number. You need a method of disguising oneself. There's just a lot of bases to cover, and I don't think Robert Fisher was able to cover those bases. His attempts to cover up the homicide were quickly discovered. I'm convinced that he was following the news very closely. He was going into Payson, reading newspaper headlines, listening to the radio. I think he perceived that his end was near. My feeling is that he disappeared into Canyon Creek or the Hell's Gate Wilderness area to a peaceful spot and there took his own life.
He's not the kind of guy to go out there and kill himself. He's cocky, he's arrogant, he's all about himself. He took off with a determination of getting away and starting off a new life.
There weren't any clothes of his found in the burned out house. So for someone to take all their clothes out suggests there's not a suicide mission afoot.
Is there a chance then and now that he is out there in the forest near Payson, dead or alive, and investigators didn't find him since it's impossible to comb such a large area?
Well, it's definitely possible that he's still living in that area. I mean, the investigation showed that he claimed to want to live on his own and be a survivalist and live off the land.
A great majority of the interviews that we did with people who were close to him, they described him as an excellent outdoorsman. What they were referring to is someone who could survive on very little resources. They can live off the land, and he would challenge himself to do that. He always would strive to see how far he can push it.
There's been a lot made of him being able to survive. He was an avid hunter, fisherman, that he could survive out in the wilderness. My sense is that that would wear thin. It's one thing to go out on a weekend or a week at a time. It's been 10 years.
There are people that live up there that know that countryside. I truly believe by now somebody would have came forward and said, look, I got a house here in the country. Once a month, I'm getting food stolen.
He was not a terribly accomplished outdoorsman. This is some of the mythology of Robert Fisher that I think got blown out of proportion.
He's a talker. And he's probably telling people what a great outdoorsman he was, but at the same time, he wasn't like an expert outdoorsman where he can survive and live off the fat of the land. I seriously doubt that.
Another piece of mythology around this case is that the woods in the Tonto National Forest were thoroughly searched for any sign of Robert Fisher. And the fact is that they weren't. This was the Scottsdale SWAT team. And these guys are trained for urban situations, for barricaded suspects inside homes. They're not trained to do wilderness searches. And so only approximately a square mile around Robert Fisher's wife's truck was actually searched. A human body in the wilderness is quickly taken apart by animals. There are plenty of coyotes up there. I think that the only trace of Robert Fisher that we may ever see will be the rusting remains of his handgun, sadly.
Since 2001, there's probably close to at least 10,000 leads that have come in.
But of those 10,000 leads, how many would you consider to be strong leads?
10 to 20.
And how many leads do you get today?
4 to 5 a day, sometimes, of people calling in. This case has generated a life of its own. He has a very average look. He doesn't stand out in a crowd. He blends in very well. And that's what's made this case so challenging. We put the information out, and we appreciate all the calls we get. People know about this guy, and we know they do because they're calling us every time they see him. But a lot of these people that are getting called in on are very good lookalikes.
Fisher is, his look is average, in all honesty. But there is another aspect of him that he has very sharp features on his nose, his brows. He has a unique walk.
He had back surgery on his lower back, and he has a bad back, and it's very sore. And he walks with a very erect posture, chest sticking out, kind of like how you walk if you had a sore back. He's got a gold tooth in his upper left bicuspid tooth. Now, he may still have that gold tooth, or he may not. Tourists were in Guatemala at a market, and they were taking photos of the market and captured an individual in the background. Well, the individual didn't like the idea that he was in the background of some of the pictures and approached the tourists.
Hey, you taking my photograph? Give me your camera. I think he made some remark about committing crime.
Well, I've killed before and I'll kill again.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it's interesting.
It looks similar to him, and we went out and attempted to identify who that individual was. There are times when we are able to find the person people call in on, and other times there's just not enough information, and that's what happened in Guatemala. So that's kind of still sitting out there, so we're kind of watching that area. And we have a number of sightings of that in the United States as well. In Grand Islands, Louisiana, before the hurricane hit down there, we were getting sightings of him down there. We've had a number of people call that didn't know each other and called in on. And we were out looking for the person, but we have not been able to find who that guy was. The caller basically called the tip line a week after it was aired and said, hey, this is Robert Fisher. I'm glad I killed the bitch. You'll never find me, and hung up. Investigation there was negative. They printed the phone, interviewed witnesses, and we weren't able to determine if that was actually him or not.
Do you think Robert made that call?
I don't. Why would he give us an edge and lead us to where he might possibly be, where the phone call came from? So I can't see him doing that.
We worked a lot of stories together. I had a lot of respect for him as a detective. He really became tied into his cases. It was very emotional for him. I know he would take it home, just like sometimes we take it home as journalists.
What really plagued him was the fact that we couldn't find him. And he thought about it day and night. Where could Robert Fisher be? Where could he have gone? Often I would get a call from him at 11 o'clock at night with an idea, and my phone would ring. Hey, I just thought of this. We got to talk about this tomorrow. It couldn't wait till tomorrow. We needed to talk about it right now, and then we'd spend the next 2 hours on the phone.
He could not wait till the day we found him, and he could sit down and look at him across the table and interview him and try and determine just what happened.
All he wanted to do was sit in a room and look at Robert Fisher and ask him one question: why?
He never said if, he said when. And he really thought Fisher would talk to him, because John was convinced, as we all were, that he was so narcissistic that he would like to tell his story.
He had evidence that led him to believe Robert Fisher was living south of the border. To me, that seems the most plausible thing. One of the things that struck me about Fisher after kind of studying his life and his lifestyle, he didn't strike me as a particularly technologically savvy guy. He left the birth certificate behind. He hated debt. He always paid cash. And so if you think about what are one of the places you could go where you can pay cash for everything, pretty much disappear, the rules don't really apply or they're not well enforced, and I think he's in a touristy area of Mexico. That's my personal opinion.
We've had him down in Mexico, other Latin American countries, Brazil. At one point there was a doctor who used to work with Robert who thought he saw him in Brazil and just caught a glimpse of a guy as he was sitting in his car, and the car next to him, and that car took off, and thought he had seen him. But that's, again, it's a common look, and we didn't have enough to go on that lead. That occurs almost daily on this case.
He had been missing, the case had gone a little cold, and somebody had reported him up in Canada, up in a little area called White Rock.
It was someone who looked like Fisher. Someone saw the wanted poster. They called it into the Canadian authorities.
And I remember when they thought that they had found Fisher in Canada. John Kirkham called me. It was late at night, and he said, "Tammy, this is it. We think we got him. We think we got him."
We started out going through the roller coaster again of what we would do if it is Robert, how we would help him through the jail situation. The same thought processes go through your head every time there's something else on the news about it.
Well, I was living in Seattle, not too far. I said, well, I'm not doing anything. I can go up, and see if it's really him. I'm kind of curious how this works out. So I went up to Canada. They basically pretended to book me into jail so that they could get me and Bob into the same room so that I could look at him face to face, hear him talk, see him walk, and hopefully identify this guy. And so what they did was, by pretending to book me, there was a hallway. He came walking out of that hall. When he came out, he walked down the hall. He's standing with his lawyer, and he's standing, with his girlfriend. He looked up and he scanned the room like anybody does when they walk into a strange place. Well, when he looked at me and I heard his voice, I knew it was him. And he stopped. He did that little look around the room and he scanned, and he came back to me, and he just sort of got this instant look on his face like, what the hell are you doing? And I was looking at him going, oh my God. And inside just, that's him. That's my old neighbor. I see this guy recognize me. I know he recognized me. He stared at me for a good 30 seconds before his lawyer had to interrupt him and get his attention off of me. They took me out after I gave them the signal and said, well, what do you think? What do you think? I'm like, that's him. Don't let him go. I got in my car, I went back home. I called my parents and I said, yep, they got him.
He had a similar scarring in his back that Fisher has. He had a missing left bicuspid tooth that Fisher had a gold tooth there, but maybe it was gone.
He has the same tooth gap, he has the same exact build, he has the same body language, he had the same mannerisms, he had the exact same voice. That was Bob Fisher.
I mean, there were a lot of different traits. His nose, his facial features were very similar to Robert, but his fingerprints didn't match.
Well, we found out a few days later they let him go. Saw it in the news like the next day or the day after.
I saw his picture, and that was not Robert Fisher. He did have the same scar in the lower back, which is a common surgery.
I didn't believe that it was my brother from the get-go because what would he be doing in Canada? My brother doesn't like to travel. I couldn't come up with a reason why or how he got to Canada.
He did his research. He was a nurse. I think he knew how to get away with changing his fingerprints.
To this day, Wade swears that those fingerprints were altered. Do you buy that?
I don't know. That's a pretty out there theory. You know, and not being there, not having looked him in the face, I don't know if I buy that. But you know, it's one person's theory, and there is a lot of theories on this case.
Can fingerprints be altered?
Sure, fingerprints can be altered. We've heard of that happening. Is it easy? No, but has it happened? Yeah.
Fingerprints don't lie. I mean, people cannot alter their fingerprints, and if they do try to alter them, they leave behind traces and evidence to show that they have altered them. I think that's so CIA-ish and things. That's so far-fetched in my mind that it doesn't occur.
This individual was fingerprinted, was identified in Canada as having a criminal history. They knew who he was, and he was not Robert Fisher.
They brought his mother in, and his mother identified him, saying, "This is my son." It was not Robert Fisher.
He may try and change his appearance, but the characteristics and the things that he likes to do will not change. He likes to chew tobacco, he likes to fish, he likes to hunt, and he's a control freak. If he's involved in a relationship with somebody, someone may have a friend, their friend's got a new boyfriend or a husband that they never met, he doesn't like to come out, he's very recluse, but he's a total control freak. Those are the things we want to look at now, because the photos we have out there now, that's what he looked like then. That's 10 years later, he's going to look older. He may not be as physically fit. That's why we want to look at the characteristics of what he's doing. I stress to people, if you see someone you really think it's him, call your local police department right away.
Whether it's him or not, we need to get called, because the more leads we get, the better chance we have of catching him.
The public's going to solve this case, correct?
Yeah. Yes. There's going to be some woman sitting with him, and she's going to see this film. She's going to see America's Most Wanted. She's probably looked at it and thought, boy, he looks like Harry. No, that can't be Harry. He's too good to my kids. Well, he was good to his original kids.
Robert Fisher was a good-looking man. He was educated. He had a military background. So has he taken up with somebody else in a new relationship? Sure, it's possible. I think Robert Fisher is living somewhere in the country. He's living in a small community, laying low, trying not to slip up. But I think eventually he will slip up. Everybody makes a mistake.
All these guys are the same. Whenever these guys commit crimes, they take off, but they get to an environment that doesn't work for them. And most guys that get caught in the same type of environment.
This person needs to answer for his crimes. He can't be living a life and enjoying life when his daughter and his son and his wife aren't anymore.
walking home from the bus stop.
If Robert ever contacted his family, would you, your sister, and or your mom immediately contact the police?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. In our different places we've lived since the tragedy, I've always made sure that Bob Caldwell, the FBI guy, his phone number is on my cell phone everywhere I go and on my home phone number, so I can just hit a button.
What's that, Mom? What's that, Mama? What is what, Bobby? No, don't pick on me. Do you like going picking up sister at the bus stop? Huh?
I've thought about how I'd greet my brother if he showed up at our door. I've looked for him on the streets no matter where we've lived. I know I would greet him and hug him, and I'd probably bawl him out, but then I would do the right thing and contact the police as soon as I could. And I know my mom and my sister would absolutely do the same thing.
Where are you going?
Puppy. Puppy's going in Puppy's and me going in sports.
You're going in sports? And where are you going, Bobby?
Puppy.
You're going to be a cubby? No way. Yes? Bobby, what's your cubby's motto?
Teacher just me.
Teacher loves me. Good. Do you know what your motto is?
A friend of Christ.
Close. My friends for Christ.
My friend Christ.
Good job.
As a child, you expect your father to protect you from the boogeyman. You don't expect your father to be the boogeyman. And that's what's real sick about this. Who knows what he's doing? Who knows if he's out there making money or he's out there having a beer? He doesn't deserve that.
I didn't have family then when it happened, but I do now. And the crime becomes even more despicable and unthinkable now that I've got kids of my own. To think that somebody could do that to their family.
Parts of me, because I love my brother, hopes he's alive, but then other parts, if he's alive, that means he did this crime. So I hope he has passed away. Because I love my brother, and I'm hoping there's another story that solves this. If there's anybody out there that knows anything, whether or not they were involved with my brother or not, there's a lot of people hurting and a lot of people who need answers. So if you know my brother, if he's alive and you know him, please call one of us or call the police and turn him in.
You want resolution, and we've got nothing. The end of the story seemed to begin at the end of the road up in Payson.
What I do is I'm actually empathing each one of the people. So what I'm doing is I'm first tuning into Robert. The first thing I saw looked like a beach community. In my head, I was trying to figure out the geography. I think it's the Bahamas. I didn't know till after that he has a connection to Florida, so I definitely feel it's in that part of the world. A small community. A beach town. I did see the beach, so I feel he lives on or near the beach. It didn't feel like a heavy touristy area. I think he would be recognized that way. I did see a house, and I don't know if it's where he lives, works. I saw what looked like a residential structure that was 2-story. Had a couple of stairs leading up to it. It's wood rather than stucco, and it's painted in either like a gray or a pale blue-gray color, and I saw a wraparound porch. Then I saw him in a kitchen with a woman who, I don't know if her name is Terry, I heard the name Terry, and her hair is about shoulder length, maybe a little bit longer. It has natural wave, and she's a brunette. And I saw a 3 to 5-year-old son, so he may have another child with this person. Around November, I was seeing 3 big black guys that look like bouncers. I don't know if he's in some sort of business with him, but I felt like there was a struggle. It felt like it went on November, December, and January, and then I felt shortly after he takes off from this woman and that area. Within a couple of months, he hooks up with a woman. This is in 2012, and I'm going out there. She has straight dark hair, black hair, or dark brown hair. It's about this length. And he's with her for about 2 months, and then at the end of next year, I felt he was apprehended. I saw him in a courtroom in December, and then I feel him extradited back to Arizona in January of 2013. So he will get caught.
You believe he's going to get caught?
Absolutely, absolutely.
After all the research and the interviews conducted, it's my belief that Robert Fisher is alive for 3 main reasons. The first one being that he took out $280 from his bank account. That certainly doesn't sound like someone who's about to kill himself. The second reason is that he packed his clothes. And the final reason being that inside that car found at the forest, his wife's SUV, it was spotless. That leads me to believe that he had an accomplice, and whoever he was with that was helping him get away certainly did not want to be guilty of anything, so that person's fingerprints were cleaned. Whoever that was, Fisher's friend, accomplice, whatever, a mistress, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, the fact that the car was found that spotless leads me to believe that he had some help. If Robert Fisher did kill himself, I believe it was an afterthought. He had a change of heart. He got his wits together and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did this. I'm never going to be able to get away with it." This case has been looked at by some of the most diligent investigators, the Scottsdale Police Department, the FBI, and everything you heard from them is the most they can reveal. They can't tell the public everything, and I get that. Unfortunately, most of the leads that they've gotten have not been strong, as you've heard. The Canada lead was the strongest one they had, and that was in 2004. So it's my hope that tonight someone watching will step forward and have the courage to supply law enforcement with the necessary information so we can finally answer the question, where is Robert Fisher?
This is a case that is absolutely chilling. And the person at the center of this case remains a mystery. We don't know really who Robert Fisher was. He hid this secret life that he had from nearly everyone. And so you have this tremendous mystery where the center of that mystery is gone. Where is he? We don't know. Part of the reason why this case, I think, lingers in the imagination of Arizona.
Look up what you're doing. There.
Up. Thank you.